Hey folks, welcome back to my channel. My name is Nigel and this channel is all about business, entrepreneurship and making money. So if you've watched my video last week, you know that I hit a bit of a snag with the launch of my Amazon FBA business. So I've mentioned previously that I was going down the route of launching with one product, getting that successful, and then moving from there, growing it from there. And I'm still on that path of trying to figure stuff out with Amazon and products and things like that. But the trouble that I'm having is that to be honest, I'm just struggling to find that product to launch with. And it's one of these things where you kind of have there's two extremes. So the one extreme is where if you keep procrastinating and you keep trying to make things perfect, you'll never launch and do anything, versus the opposite end of the spectrum where if you don't do due diligence, then you'll end up losing lots of money in the process. And we've all seen those horror stories, and it is perfectly possible for people to lose a bunch of money fairly fast on Amazon, especially if you don't take into consideration all of the things like the warehouse fees if your products don't ship fast enough, and if you don't do due diligence on the pricing model of your products and the cost of actually landing those products in the Amazon FBA warehouse, all that sort of stuff. And so those are all reasons why I'm kind of wrestling with this process and trying to figure it all out. So it's not to say that it's dead in the water. I'm just going back to the drawing board a little bit, trying to figure out that whole process so that I make sure that I don't make those mistakes. Because there's a bunch of info out there on how people have made a bunch of mistakes and lost a bunch of money in the process. And I don't want to be added to that number of people that do that. I want to be successful straight out the block, and obviously you do want to learn things, but at the same time the whole process has been a good learning curve anyway. But just recently I started rereading this again. If you haven't ever read this book, I would highly recommend it. I think this is probably one of the most life-changing books that I've ever read in terms of business. So this is the new revised version, so it has like more up-to-date stories compared to the original, which is really around people that are like in the mid 20th century that were super successful back then. But honestly, I don't think there's been a book that has changed my life from a business perspective as much as this book. The stories and just the whole process, the mentality and the mindset of success is hugely beneficial. I mean, it starts out with the story of how Edwin Barnes started to work with Thomas Edison, and even that in itself, I mean, the way that just in terms of Edwin Barnes traveling to Thomas Edison to tell him that he wanted to become his business partner, it's quite a crazy story in itself. And most people facing that sort of adversity of not actually even having a way to get there, not having the finances to get to see Edison or any of those sort of factors, most people would have quit and thrown in the towel there and then. And so just straight off the bat, that's a super inspiring story of persistence, and it led to a hugely successful relationship. As we know just from history, both of those men were exceedingly wealthy and influential in their own right, based on the successes of their business endeavors. So yeah, if you haven't read this book, it's like the granddad of all self-help business guru type books, but honestly it is packed with some really good material. So yeah, outside of that, this week, I've just been spitballing a whole bunch of ideas. So this channel's not just about Amazon FBA. So if you came here just for that, then I'm sorry, but you're gonna get a whole mix of things. But yeah, it's about a whole bunch of different things. I have hugely varying passions ranging from the arts and creativity, videography, stuff like that, photography, all the way through to practical stuff like mechanics and off-grid power in my camper van and stuff like that. So quite a big range of interests and passions, and I'm looking at ways of monetizing all of those. So we've been growing our off-grid power channel, both on TikTok and YouTube. So the details are down below if you want to go check those out, but they're growing pretty well, especially the off-grid power on TikTok. There's a sort of a silo of interest in TikTok into the van life, sort of off-grid power. And so we kind of straight off the bat with our first few videos had a few viral videos, and that's been quite successful. So I'm just exploring ways of monetizing that, going through the motions of setting up email lists and stuff like that to be able to monetize the audience that we've grown there. We're in the process of developing some products in that industry, physical products that will form part of our Amazon FBA business, but also we'll just sell those e-commerce on our website. So a bunch of different activities on the go there, and I'll keep you posted as those progress. Currently, I'm just going through the nuts and bolts of starting an e-commerce business, and that involves interaction with manufacturers in China. So stuff like setting up contracts with shipping agents and exploring quality control stuff for the manufacturers in China, and then going through the motions of setting up sales funnels on the website and exploring the different platforms and figuring out what the best option is there and all that sort of stuff. So a lot of that would be considered the boring aspect of business or modern business or online business, whatever you want to call it. But the reality is that is how you make your money. You need to have a good website, and it needs to be performing well. And it's one of these things where a lot of people would put so much emphasis and focus into the aesthetic and the look and feel of the website, but the reality is that it needs to perform well. So you need to have that sales funnel, have the right words that convince people that they want to spend their money and part with their money. And even before that step, just in terms of collecting email addresses that you use to market with, you need to convince people that you're going to add value to their life. And so that's the kind of journey that we're on now, is developing out that value that will lead to sales. So I guess nothing super tangible to show this week, but it's been a head down graph type of week, and it's been pretty productive. So thanks for following along. As I mentioned, this channel is going to be exploring all sorts of different things business-wise. We're going to be sharing products as we launch and successes, sharing the results of the successes so you can see tangibly what's possible in today's day and age. And let me just tell you, it is possible to start and launch and grow a successful e-commerce or online business these days. If you're thinking that the market's too saturated or that there's no opportunity left, there is a ton of opportunity, and the opportunity is growing every day. So get after it. If you haven't yet, read this book. Highly recommend it. It's one of the best books. Honestly, I can't sing its praises high enough. I think I've listened to the audiobook probably 4 times now. Every time I get something new out of it. And I think this is the second time now that I'm actually reading the physical book. So obviously this is the revised version. I've read the original as well. So it's one of those books, every time you read it, you'll get something out of it. So yeah. And the other thing, bear in mind as well, is it's all very well reading these books and stuff, but if they don't change your behavior, your mindset, or your habits, then it was a waste of time. So there has to be action that follows that inspiration that you get from these amazing books. And that's something that I've learned recently in the last couple of months, where for years I've been absorbing all this information and I have not done anything with it. And then now I'm like, yeah, you know what? Now's the time. Let's go. Let's get this thing. So I hope you're all well. Thanks for following along and watching these videos. Hopefully you get something interesting out of it, helpful, inspirational, whatever the case is. But any questions or ideas of the type of stuff you want to see on this channel, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks.